fuck am I watching right now? Hello, and welcome back to the True Crime Guys podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
How's everybody doing? You guys ready for some roommate talk? Roommates, one of those things. Having roommates is one of those things that sounds better than it actually turns out. It's almost always a shit show.
It's sketch, man. It's like it's no different than like a Craigslist deal, but you have to stay with this person.
Yeah. It's a quick way to make you hate your friends. And
yeah.
God forbid you do you have to put a Craigslist ad out and get some person that you have no idea anything about them or what they're lying to you about with their personality or their background, and they're living in your home.
That's what I was going to say. It's bad enough when you know the person from the start, but when you don't even know the person and you don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of success stories of people, not knowing their roommate, whatever, moving in together, and it ends up being better because they have a mutual respect for each other because they're not friends first, right? Nobody's trying to take advantage of the other one.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, this is not what we talk about here on True Crime, guys. This is going to be a horror story.
We're talking about the worst roommate ever.
Exactly.
And really, the worst roommate ever turns out to be a guy cut from the same cloth as Robert Durst and John DuPont. This is what this guy reminded me of. Just yet again,
Makes
it's like there's
sense.
a perfect concoction, like perfect storm of elements that create this type of sociopath, like a very affluent upbringing, spoiled, but then they get outshined by their family members. And I'm telling you, it's like to a T. This guy was a sociopath, just like those two, DuPont and and Robert Durst. Like it's funny. And ultimately they lash out and almost always end up killing someone close to them, right? Is what ultimately happens.
Right. Because they don't measure up, to whatever. And now to come into the defense of Jameson Bachmann, who we're going to talk about today, his family was pretty rough on him. As far as they let him know that he was a disappointment, right? Maybe that's not the smartest thing to do if you're the family member and you have a disappointing member. Maybe not rub it in their face, through adulthood.
Yeah.
I don't think that helps the situation.
I don't know how much of that was even real, though. I mean, we know he's a liar. I mean,
that's true.
May not even been the case.
True.
I mean, his brother bailed him out of jail multiple times for stupid shit.
I know.
Tried to come to his defense, but
yeah. But we know how that turned out.
Yeah, we know how that turned out. So let's not get too heavily into it. Let's dive into this case, the worst roommate ever, and we'll talk about our sources and everything on the other side.
Let's do it, man.
Hi, my name is Jed Creek, and I've hit a bit of a bad streak. I need to move back to Philadelphia. Hi, my name is Jed Creek, and I've hit a bit of a bad streak. Can I please move back to Philadelphia? I promise it's just me and my dog, and I won't be any trouble at all, and I just really need to move in tonight. I promise it's just me and my dog, and I won't be any trouble at all, and I just really need to move in tonight. Got your whole life in front of you, you're pretty, you got this house. Well, you don't have this house anymore, this house, my house, I'll see you in court. Got your whole life in front of you, you're pretty, you got this house. Well, you don't have this house anymore, this house, my house, I'll see you in court.
Well, that's that. Here's the first month's rent, but the last you're gonna get. I also got a cat, so I can be sure to clog your drains with its shit. I'm sorry, what? I said I'm a fucking squatter, babe, and I came to sit. I'm a fucking squatter, babe, and I came to sit.
Got your whole life in front of you, you're pretty, you got this house. Well, you don't have this house anymore, this house, my house, I'll see you in court. Got your whole life in front of you, you're pretty, you got this house. Well, you don't have this house anymore, this house, my house, I'll see you in court. Got your whole life in front of you, you're pretty, you got this house. Well, you don't have this house anymore, this house, my house, I'll see you in court.
All right, our episode this week was suggested by a listener on Instagram. I want to say thank you to Kelshira Kawa. Not sure if that's pronounced correctly, but that's your Instagram. Thank you for the suggestion on this case. She wrote a long message about how we have to check out this two-part episode of a series called Worst Roommate Ever on Netflix. And it's a two-part episode named Roommate Wanted. And So we checked that out. It was compelling. And then also there was an article written in 2018 from William Brennan of the New Yorker, which I believe the Netflix series spawned off to make this two-part episode, because that article was really well done. The author talked to several of the former roommates of this creep and got their takes. And then the Netflix series went out and got those former roommates and interviewed them. And that was very interesting.
Very absolutely theatrical. Great storytellers.
Yeah, they were.
What are the chances that every roommate was a great storyteller? Right. I was like, wow, this is captivating.
Yeah,
this is absolutely captivating.
Maybe there was several more roommates that they didn't interview. Maybe those people just weren't as good on camera. They're just like,
right. Don't worry about those. Yeah, we got the 3 major ones.
Because the main girl, Alex Miller, who we're going to start this story with, she was very compelling on screen and very theatrical, dramatic. She should almost be a play actor. Like, she's so good at displaying emotion. So good at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Granted, this was a very traumatic thing she went through. So yeah, I mean, it comes natural when you go through some shit like this.
And she just got done with this in 2017, right? 2017, 2018,
yeah, it's still fresh.
Done with this whole debacle. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's pretty easy to recall those feelings, those emotions. Wasn't that long ago, and it could happen to anybody. That's what's so terrifying about these cases.
Well, anybody that looks for roommates on Craigslist, I do warn you of that thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Each of these people did start with a Craigslist ad, so
yeah,
take it for what it is.
And also depending on the city you're in and the squatter laws that they have, like Philadelphia being one of the ones that gives more rights to a person who gets tenancy in your property. It doesn't take much. Basically, all they have to do is get mail sent to your property, and all of a sudden they are like locked in. Like, they can't be booted. Boom. So,
bro, you'd be surprised. I mean, you guys, if you are looking for roommates, it really is worth looking into these squatter laws in your area, because you'd be surprised at how lenient they are.
Yeah.
I remember I was learning about squatter laws in Vegas, and it's insane, dude. Like, how people can just set up shop, and like you say, if they just get a piece of mail sent there, and then all of a sudden they're a resident, whether they've paid any rent, whether they've signed a lease, whether they have any utilities in their name, all of that's irrelevant.
Yep.
That's terrifying, dude.
Yep. Yeah, we'll talk more about this as we go through this episode. So let's start it out in March of 2017 with 31-year-old Alex Miller of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She was struggling during this time. She was dealing with the sudden departure of a roommate. So she depended on a roommate for her apartment that she had, because her apartment was in a really nice area of Philadelphia. She loved this apartment, loved the area, did not want to go anywhere. So she needed someone to fill that void of that roommate that left. And her mom was up her ass because she was depending on her mom to cover part of the rent money until she could find a new roommate. And her mom was she was in this 2-part series, and yeah, she's a tough cookie, man. She ends up playing a big role in this case because she's such a tough nut to crack here. And
indeed.
And so she's got her mom up her ass. She's trying to find a new roommate, and her bank account was barely kept afloat by part-time work at a juice bar and at a nearby law firm filing paperwork, which also plays into this and helps her out a little bit because she needs some help from lawyers throughout this thing. Her mom had been forking over money, as we mentioned, to help her get by while she looked for a roommate. And her ad that she put up on Craigslist had been there for about 2 weeks when she got the call she'd been waiting for. She receives a voicemail from a man in March of 2017 that identified himself as Jed Creek. He called and left a voicemail at about 9 p.m. And if that name sounds phony to you, it's because it is. Jed Creek. Doesn't that just sound fake?
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Well, this Jed Creek.
It sounds like a creek in Arkansas or some shit.
That's because it is. Remember, the mom looks it up and she's like, all I could find was actual fucking little towns.
Yeah.
In middle America or whatever.
Right. If you can't find nothing with somebody's name, that is without a doubt a red flag.
Yeah.
If you can't find a person with that name.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a red flag.
So Jed Creek was allegedly a lawyer from New York City, and he had grown up just outside Philadelphia, only a few minutes drive from Alex's apartment in the city's high-end neighborhood of Chestnut Hill. So this Jed Creek had grown up down the road from this apartment, had gone off to college and become a lawyer and whatnot, and now was coming back, I think, to like maybe try and start a practice supposedly or whatever in the town that he grew up in. And he also had an online business tutoring. So he explained that he needed a place to stay while he tended to family matters. He was apparently going through a hard time as well. His mother, he said, was old and frail, and his older brother was suffering from complications with hepatitis C. I've also heard that his older brother needed legal help, and he was there to help his brother. So it sounds like the stories were all over the place, which is the more we get to know this guy,
yeah.
it sounds
whatever
likely.
sob story he had to deliver.
It was always something. We'll come to find out it was his house was torn down by a hurricane or whatever story he had to make up.
Right.
And so during their initial phone call, he said, I find Philadelphians to be very, very difficult, a lot of flaky people. And she responded with, I'm not flaky, so you're good, off to a good start. And after their phone conversation, Alex did a little bit of digging. She checked out his website, Socrates and Plato, where he offered tutoring services. And on that website, he had a biography and everything seemed to check out. All of his degrees were listed on there, pictures of him tutoring people and whatnot. He was a tall, slim, and handsome man with jet black hair. And though he was 60, he looked to be in his late 40s. So she's...
Oh, wow. He was 60?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Right. Well, there's only a few grainy photos of this guy also.
I know. Yeah, that's true.
The two-part series on Netflix, they basically just recycle the same 4 pictures and just zoom in on them over and over again. You're like, all right, I've seen this picture already. And it's grainy as shit. It's like the Bigfoot photo, you know?
I guess that's all they had of him.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess if a blurry photo and then you got you a can of Just for Men's, I guess you could look like you're in your 40s.
There you go.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. But she's thinking she hit the jackpot. You know, you get an established man, a lawyer, good looking guy, accomplished, and he sounds very cordial on the phone and everything. He was very good at sucking people in. He knew how to manipulate. Mm-hmm. And so,
too good to be true.
Yeah. Usually if it seems too good to be true, it is. So when he came to visit the apartment, he brought his dog. Well, actually, they met up. According to Alex in the interview on the TV show, they met up first at a park, right? Like went to a coffee shop, then he went and got his dog so they could go to a park and let the dogs play, so that they could figure out whether the dogs were even going to get along. Because if they weren't, then it was never going to work.
Exactly.
The dogs hit it off like best buds. They were playing. They went back from the park to Alex's apartment, which she hadn't told him where her apartment was, very wisely, until she had met him and got the dogs to meet and everything else. Then they walked from the park back to her apartment. The dogs lay down together. They start sleeping. And she's like, wow, this is great. And so, yeah, he had a 13-year-old border collie mix named Zachary. And she had an older black lab named Cosimo. So those dogs are hanging out. They're at the apartment. And he's this, gentleman, very nice. They headed off. And at the end of the tour, they settled on her couch and fell into a deeper conversation. He shared his interest in Buddhist meditation. She told him about some romantic troubles and he offered advice. And it was just like, wow, once again, too good to be true. Right.
Yep. Yep.
And finally, Jed allegedly said, quote, I like the place and I like you. If you like me, I could just, it sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. I like you and you like me. We could just do this now.
Right. Or it sounds like an elementary school relationship.
Yeah.
You like me? Yeah, I like you too. Yeah. We should be boyfriend girlfriend.
We should pass notes and hug each other a couple times a week.
Pass notes. Hold hands at lunch.
Right. The holding hands.
Yeah, that's a fine way to start. That's a fine way to start an elementary school relationship, but a roommate relationship?
Yeah.
I don't know. know.
And she was pretty excited when he said he could pay her on the spot. He pulled out a check from his pocket and made it out for $800. But she noticed that this is the first red flag, in the upper left corner of the check, it was blank. In the space where his name and address should have appeared, he wrote 219 East Willow Grove Avenue as his address on there. So already putting her address as his on there. And that's the first step to, really successfully squatting is getting your name on some mail for that address. Once that's done, right. I mean, he was planting his seed right there, planting a flag really in the ground.
Yeah, seriously, because now she has accepted a check with this address. Yeah. So, like, a lawyer attorney would be like, well, look, you cashed this check that he gave you with your address on it. Yeah. Like, you didn't notice this? He wrote it on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's damning. That's some damning evidence to start with.
Yeah, and also the fact that she put the lease agreement in front of him and said, I need you to fill this out. And he was like, oh, yeah, no problem. And then just didn't fill it out. And it was sitting on the table day after day and just didn't fill it out.
Nope.
Yeah, so
sign.
When he returned that evening, he comes back that evening. So right away, the first day they meet, he's moving in that night. He returns and she sees that he had all of his belongings inside of a few Rubbermaid bins and also had a cat carrier, because it turned out along with Zachary, he had a cat as well. And I think actually 2 cats. And we'll find out those
Yeah.
were from former roommates of his, that those cats shouldn't have ever belonged to him. So we'll get into
No.
that.
He
But
was an animal stealer.
yeah, I mean, there's another red flag. He
Son of a
didn't he
bitch.
didn't mention that he had cats, and she turns out is allergic to cats. And he assured her that the cat will never come out of the bedroom, that it's very shy, and yada yada.
Uh-huh.
Also weird that he never brought a mattress to any of his homes that he would end up moving in with people. He would always just bring a bunch of comforters and throw them on the floor and say he's comfortable sleeping on the floor. Probably because he assumed that at some point he would be living in their master bedroom with their bed and all of their
Yeah.
belongings.
Right. He's like, they already have everything I need.
He's like a
so
parasite. They're just like, they go into your body and then they take over and they're working your arms and shit.
Yeah.
He's a human parasite.
That's him. He doesn't need any of his own things.
No. Why would you? When
right?
he's just going to assume your life.
When a successful lawyer moves in with 6 Rubbermaid bins, yeah, your stomach's got to drop. You got to be like, oh shit,
it's just a little weird.
What have I just done?
Yeah,
what have I done?
So the following afternoon, though, she felt a lot better when she went and the check didn't bounce. It deposited into her account and cleared. Now, like we said, that was also a big issue because now he's just basically got his name on your property, and that's good. And at this point, it's 3 months minimum. If you begin the eviction process this day, 3 months minimum before you can get him out of there. The second that he had his name on mail at your address, that's it.
You're fucked.
Yep. You can't change the locks. You can't do nothing, dude. So the two quickly fell into a comfortable routine. Everything was great initially. He rose early in the morning and took the dog for a run. He tended carefully to his pets, which always put his roommates at ease. Almost every roommate that was interviewed about him said that, initially, I just really appreciated how well of care he took of his animals. That showed me that he was a good guy.
Usually that is a sign that someone is an affectionate, good person if they do care for their animals in a good way, or animals like them, right? If they have
most serial killers don't have animals. We've come to realize that. I think there's only been like one that had a dog that we covered over all this time. Yeah. Most of them don't have animals.
They don't have animals.
They spend time killing them growing up, and then they never have them.
No.
Yeah.
No, they just graduate to humans.
Yeah. That being said, this guy's not really a serial killer. He does end up lashing out and killing someone later in this episode, but we'll talk more about that later.
Right.
He's just a serial abuser. He gets off on making other people suffer for whatever reason. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
He spoke to his dog, Zachary, apparently in exclusively in Dutch, which he said he learned while living in the Netherlands in the 1980s. Interesting background, this guy. Got a late start to his lawyer career, which we'll talk about. She said he fed his animals well. For Zachary, brand name kibble. For Abigail, the cat, a mix of dry food and organic chicken, which he diced with a serrated knife. That's a little foreshadowing. That knife would come into play later.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
They spent the nights together on the couch, drinking wine and watching the Rachel Maddow show, one of Jed Creek's favorite shows. Of course, he's watching his favorite show, right? Not hers.
Of course. They're doing all his favorite things now.
Yeah. Apparently, on one evening, an old hookup overstayed his welcome, refusing to leave despite Alex's requests, and Jed barged into the room and told him to get lost, basically, and the guy left, threatened him.
I didn't know about that. Yeah. I didn't know about this little incident.
This is all in an article from 2018.
That gained Alex's trust. That gained Alex's trust. It really helped, didn't it?
Yeah. I don't think the two-part series had enough time to go into a lot of these details because they talked to so many of his former roommates, and it was still like 2 40-minute episodes. And so
they could have if they weren't showing the same damn pictures over and over.
True.
No, I'm just kidding. And then the second part, like every documentary, is such a recap. They spent 15 minutes saying the same stuff. Yeah. It's like, damn it, you could have gave us some extra info. Now that I know, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
Before your entree, we're gonna bring out a second helping of appetizer. Here you go. Like, I already have fucking appetizer. I don't need any more.
Right. Here's some more fried pickles. Yeah. God damn it.
So then on April 5th, so they'd been, not very long, their 11th day of living together, Miller showed Creek the ability or the utility bills and asked for his half, $140.80. And Jed Creek refused. The bills, he noted, covered a period before he had moved in, like a few days maybe. Well, I guess he'd only been there 11 days. So he actually has a bit of a leg to stand on, but I think she had a leg to stand on from like, okay, well then pay a third of it or a quarter of it. You pay something. You've been here 11 days. Let's
prorate it then.
Yeah. Do the math, figure it out. But however, when Alex pressed him, he texted, "We can handle this in court if you would prefer." and you know what you're in for right away when so quickly your relationship and the partnership you had here and sharing this home goes from 0 to 100. It gets so serious so quickly. It's just like, oh wow, really? Talking lawsuit already?
Court, right? We're talking 11 days in.
All I did was ask you to pay your portion of the utility bills, and you're talking lawyers already? Okay, not a good sign.
Yeah, that's not good.
And at first, the escalation in tone jarred Alex naturally, who was looking at the dates. However, she second guessed herself. Like we said, he had only been there 11 days. She was asking him to pay for the full month's worth of utilities, which wasn't actually fair. He had a good point there, but to get so serious so quickly, a good roommate would have just said, how about I pay? Yeah, I was going to say a good roommate, 11 days. That's a third of a month. How about I pay a third of the bills?
Yeah.
And then next month I'll pay in full. That's what a normal person and business relationship would do.
Yep.
But then he's not a normal guy, and strange things began to happen. One evening, Alex came home to find the living room lights wouldn't turn on. He had apparently taken the bulbs out of the lights in the living room and screwed them into lamps in his own bedroom. And even better, a few days later, she had a dining set with 6 chairs at the kitchen table.
This is crazy.
This is just straight fucking he is just straight fucking with her. So she had this dining set in her dining room, which had 6 chairs. All of them, she comes home to find all of them gone. So she goes and, gingerly knocks on the door. Jed, have you seen the chairs to the dining room? And he says, yeah, they're in here. I've basically made a desk and I made a desk out of them.
Yeah.
And she's like, all of them? And he's like, yeah. And then he starts getting rude and saying, there's 2 people in this house. Why do you need 6 chairs? And so she was apparently able to talk him into getting 2 chairs back. So she's got this giant dining table with 2 chairs.
I'd be like, that'd be it, bro. I'd be like, motherfucker, if I want to have 20 chairs around my table that I pay for, they're going to sit here.
Exactly.
Like, you can come sit at the kitchen table and do your fucking work.
You ain't put in on these chairs, motherfucker. This is my chairs.
Exactly.
You ain't even paid your portion of the fucking utility bills yet.
Exactly. God, the audacity. But we find out this guy just likes to fuck with people, man. He has to.
He gets off on it.
Bored or hates himself or something.
He just gets a complete boner from making other people's lives miserable,
I guess.
And she would come to find out that she thought, when she met him, he'd be a busy guy, a working lawyer, and blah, blah, blah. Apparently, he never left her home. She would talk to neighbors and be like, yeah, he's always wandering around all times of the day. He never leaves. Part of that is that he probably knew that early on that they were likely to, once they realized the kind of guy he was, to possibly change the locks and stuff like that. Not that would have stopped him from staying there, but ultimately, if he never leaves, it's just that much harder to get him out,
No doubt.
So when they would argue, Jed would accuse her of breaking the covenant of quiet enjoyment, a technical phrase that she had recognized from her days working as a real estate agent. And also, we mentioned she worked part-time at a lawyer's office as well. So he knows the law well, having gone through law school. Fails
especially
the bar
around
exam,
rental properties.
Around rental properties. He really studied that sector hard because he knew that he was going to use it.
Oh, yeah. He learned quite a bit. He didn't need to pass the bar.
So
he learned all he needed to learn.
This is a common thing he would do with his roommates. He would find things that they would do that would make his life inconvenient and then use that as his reasoning for not paying rent. At one point in Alex's apartment, he found a cigarette butt in the toilet bowl one afternoon. Due to this discovery, he told her that he would not be paying next month's rent. And he said, quote, as a paralegal, you should know about the warranty of habitability. He texted her.
Oh, Lord.
So he's stealing her chairs and fashioning them into a desk and everything like that, taking her light bulbs, but she puts a cigarette butt in the toilet and he's no longer has to pay rent.
Yeah, apparently he hates smoking.
Granted, that's pretty gross.
He draws the line.
Like throwing a cigarette butt in the toilet. Like, I don't know. Smokers, get it together. Like, there's this guy I work with. You probably know who I'm talking about just by mentioning it, but a smoker, but also constantly ranting and raving about global warming and the environment, and then he'll be ranting and raving and then throw a cigarette butt out in the parking lot and step on it. It's okay. Okay, cool.
Right. What a contribution, sir.
Doing your part there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So now Alex's mom gets involved, and this is bad news for Jed. I don't care how much he knows about the law and whatnot. When you got a mom like this, and we all know him,
Yep.
She gets on the case. She gets on the case. You got to have these moms that will get involved.
Mm-hmm.
So
the heroes of true crime.
Yeah. Alex basically sicks her mom on the situation, tells her what's going on, and hearing about Jed Creek's, this alleged Jed Creek, his behavior, Alex's mom gets on the case and starts digging into Google to try and find this guy. And she is having no luck. Like we mentioned earlier, she's finding little towns called Jed Creek and things like that, and rivers and shit, and nothing. But then she finally types in Jed Creek phone number, and that combination gives her a different identity. It gives her a guy named Jameson Bachmann. And so she calls her daughter right away. And when she finds some information about this Jameson Bachmann character, right away, she sees all these articles about serial squatter Jameson Bachmann. This guy already had a reputation, which is why he had changed his name in the first place to Jed Creek. So she calls her daughter and says, Alex, we have a big problem. Jed Creek is not who he says he is. And so, yeah, let's go into a little bit more about his background. In 2012, Bachmann had shown up at the home of a woman across town named Melissa Frost. This is also in Philadelphia, claiming to be a New Yorker whose home had been destroyed in Hurricane Sandy. Feeling bad for him, Melissa let him in and nearly lost her house. In an expensive and frightening ordeal that dragged on for months, Bachmann slowly tried to assume ownership, using his intricate knowledge of tenancy laws to stay one step ahead of her. And was Melissa, I'm trying to remember if she was in the two-part episode on, I don't think she was.
I don't think she was either.
But in this instance, he scuffed up the floors, kicked down the doors, and clogged the toilets with cat litter. He loved to use his cat litter as a weapon. He would do it at just about every place he lived in. He would throw it down their toilet. At one point, one of the renters that he shared a room with ended up trying to get her landlord involved, because if the landlord gets involved, it's easier to get someone evicted. And so he would start dumping his cat litter out the window onto the landlord's property, which was right behind. He's just using his cat litter left and right as a weapon.
See, and that makes you wonder if that's why he kept the animals as just annoyances, right?
Well, one would later believe that he killed one of his cats just as a means to getting back at someone.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like he had them just as pawns, you know, or just
also possibly as a means for what we mentioned earlier, to get the person to be his roommate to be comfortable with him initially.
Oh, right.
It's another thing. Right. Like, you see how he treats them and it just makes you comfortable. Kind of like how we've seen some serial killers utilize a partner or who's like a female in order to be able to abduct women.
That's true. Some reason a single man with a dog is less threatening than just a single man.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
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 So
I see what you mean.
Melissa said, quote, he went from being this cordial, polite person who understood he was a guest in my house to someone who was approaching me aggressively and flat out saying, this is my house now. And it turns out that Jameson Bachmann had been doing this for a long time. He had dozens of victims spread up and down the East Coast, driving roommate after roommate into court and often from their home. And amazingly, it seemed as though his primary motivation wasn't free rent, although he often got that. It seemed to be something of the fact that he relished the anguish of those that had taken him in. He was really, much like a parasite, just enjoyed the suffering of the host.
Because he really didn't gain anything. He never got to stay in these properties like super long term. I know he spent like 4 years with one lady. But for the most part, it
lasted
it's
for what, like 6 months or something. And it was the whole time was just back and forth, combative.
Right. And like you said, we know his motivation is not just needing a place to stay, because who would want to live like that? I mean, even he is in constant turmoil of having to go to court and try to stay one step ahead. But I guess he liked it.
Yeah.
He had to have liked it. He had, in order to
because
live a life
he had nothing
like this,
to lose. That's the thing. He had nothing to lose because, like, let's say he loses in court, he just moves on to the next person, changes his name, and he knows that the law will benefit him over and over again if he can just make his way into your home. It's almost like a vampire. You know, they have to be invited in.
Yeah.
And they can do whatever they want.
Like, for real. It's like the most pathetic type of person, honestly. Someone who hates themselves and is disappointed in themselves. And instead of changing their life and making themselves someone that people want to be around and someone that people will love, they go and just try to take everything else from other people. It's like, oh, you know, it's like he probably feels bad about being homeless or whatnot. Well, now every roommate he's ever been with at some point in time or another ended up being homeless because of him. It's like, I'm going to drive you down to my level.
Yep.
And I like doing it.
Yep.
It's fucked up, man.
Yep.
Something wasn't right.
Yep. So for Melissa Frost, it was the hurricane that had gotten him in her door, and for Alex Miller, it was sickly relative in need of Bachmann's aid. But for others, an
Mm-hmm.
alcoholic roommate or a sudden change in employment did the trick. Whatever he had to tell the person to let him in, to invite him in, much like a vampire, like we said.
Exactly.
He would mention his education at Georgetown University, University of which he had a master's in history, and the University of Miami, where he got his law degree. And he would describe how he made a living doing litigation and tutoring youngsters online. And he promised that he was clean and respectful and required nothing more than a quiet room and a fast internet connection. And another roommate of his, named Sonia Acevedo, a 49-year-old vet tech from Brooklyn, saw Bachmann's U-Haul pull up outside her beachside condo. She was in that two-part episode. She had the beautiful condo on the beach that she actually,
yes,
I believe, had purchased. She had like taken out money out of her retirement.
She was the owner of this.
She'd taken money out of her pension in order to put a down payment on this. Was her dream home. And it's so sad. She ultimately ended up losing this, and she's crying at the end of the series like, I lost it because of this guy. I was never able to recover from that time that I didn't get any, rent from him to pay my mortgage.
Devastating.
And she ended up getting her place got foreclosed on. But upon meeting him, he pulled up with a fucking U-Haul. Big red flag. There's no way. I'm sorry, Sonia, but like, there's no way I'm letting a dude move in with me if like he's already assuming that it's gonna work. It's like,
but she's about to lose her home, and he shows up not only with the U-Haul but with a check, just like he always does. Yeah. He has a check, and the check is good. The check is good.
Yeah. Actually, I think he brought cash on this occasion. Didn't she say she was like this cash that he handed her was a godsend? She was actually thanking God.
Well, there you go.
For this Even man better. To come into her life. And she, interestingly, he was not her only option. She said that she had had two people hit her up on her ad. One of them was a young couple with children, and the other one was more of an established man, a lawyer, and all that. And she's like, of course I'm going to go with the lawyer with the dog, because she was also an animal person, and that was actually an added bonus for her. She put pets welcome in her ad.
Right.
Yeah,
but not kids.
Yeah. So when he pulls up with a U-Haul across the street, and he basically is saying, I'm sorry to be, sudden, but I think his whole story with that he laid on her was that he was going through a bad breakup, and then it was either he get this room with her or that he was going to be sleeping in the U-Haul. And this was in the spring of 2012. And like we mentioned, she prayed to God that he had shown up and brought her this cash so that she could make her mortgage payments. And so things started off smoothly, as they always did. Those first 3 months were perfect, she recalled. She and Bachmann ate breakfast together while the sun rose over the beach, talking about little things, errands, pets, politics. But shortly after Bachmann moved in, one of her cats died. And when she returned home from the vet that afternoon, Bachmann met her at her car, tears welling in her eyes, saying, I'm so sorry, and pulling her in for a hug. So he's just further, just sucking her in, sticking his claws into her. And so things were going well. But then he began to toy with his victim, moving things in the home initially, taking them for himself, seemingly making his territory unsettling for the primary resident. So basically like a dog going in and pissing on everything. He's kind of like marking his territory. He's like saying, this is my home. I can do whatever I want with it. I can rearrange your furniture, which he did on one occasion. On the first day, he rearranged
that was one of his favorite things to do, was rearrange the furniture. He would just come in and just take ridiculous liberties with other people's stuff that you would just never imagine. Huge red flags early on. Crazy.
Michael Oberhauser was a 31-year-old composer and music theorist living in Northwest DC. He welcomed Jameson Bachmann into his apartment in the fall of 2016, and almost immediately tensions rose around a red bath mat of his Oberhauser.
Unacceptable.
Right. Well, he noticed that every time that he would go into the bathroom, Jameson had picked it up and tossed it in the corner every time he used the bathroom. And when Oberhauser asked him, he said, quote, I asked him about it, and he said, oh yeah, I was going to clean it, so I put it back, and he kept throwing it out. Eventually, he duct taped the mat to the floor. Beneath it, he placed a note reading, why? Simply why. Oh, I love it.
Why are you keep moving this mat?
Exactly.
Did he reply? Because this wasn't covered in the documentary either.
Right. I imagine he just then took it and threw it in the corner again.
Yeah, right through the paper over there too.
Right. So if Bachmann's intentions were first unclear, in most cases, by the time the second month's rent came due, they became unmistakable. Time and time again, his roommates were informed that some minor discomfort they'd inflicted upon him, like we mentioned earlier with the cigarette butt in the toilet, or a dirty living room or a dish left in the sink had violated their lease and meant that Bachmann wouldn't be paying his rent. As if he wasn't doing all kinds of shit to their stuff, like
I know.
But I guess it doesn't matter
But they don't.
when the lease is in your name and he never signed like co-part on the lease, and he's just living there. He doesn't have to
Right.
There's nothing legally binding him to pay a certain amount necessarily.
Nope.
The landlord's going to go back to the initial primary renter who initially moved in and signed the lease, not the person who they then let live with them.
Exactly.
So when things would get tense, he would stop leaving the house so they couldn't change the locks. One of his victims, who we mentioned earlier, Melissa Frost, the one that he had claimed his story was Hurricane Sandy, was what uprooted him. She became so fed up that he had unplugged her microwave, he'd put his microwave in her kitchen. That's what it was. She got so fed up with his antics that she unplugged his microwave and brought it upstairs to his room, telling him he couldn't keep his things in the common areas. Jameson shouted that she had no right to touch his things, and no right to touch his things.
The audacity.
Seriously. He then used the microwave to push her slowly backward until she was teetering on the edge of the staircase. You would see this time and time again. He would bully women. I mean, he would straight up get in their face and punk them, physically, insinuate that he's going to hurt them. And in this case, pushing her to the edge of a staircase is very threatening.
Absolutely.
To
play those mind games.
On this occasion, Melissa Frost had a friend over, and this friend intervened, and Melissa would call the police. Sometime after the cops arrived, a calico cat of Jameson Bachmann's named Emma disappeared. And Bachmann wrote, this is what we mentioned earlier, where he may have killed his own animals in order to get what he wanted. He would write to Melissa in fury, quote, in all caps, "You are the proximate cause of my cat's disappearance and presumed death. Do not communicate with me again unless it's through your attorney." Yet even after all of this, Melissa Frost approached him to try and negotiate a peaceful exit. She offered to return the money he paid in November and to try and find him a new place to stay. However, hearing her offer, he just laughed. And this is another thing he would do. He would maniacally laugh at these people. It seems like he almost exclusively, I guess there was a couple male people that he rented rooms from, but he seems like he targeted women because he could really bully them more so. And he would laugh this just evil laugh like, you stupid girl, you're not getting anything out of me.
Right.
And he burst, when he just laughed, she burst into tears, and he pretended to comfort her. Quote, he goes, "You got your whole life in front of you. You're pretty and you're talented and you got this house. Well, you don't have this house anymore. The house is my house."
Oh,
good Lord.
Creepy.
Good Lord. Yeah. She says
it was like something out of
his favorite
phrases.
She says it was like something out of a movie.
Yeah. He is so creepy, man. He loved to tell people he was going to take their house.
Yeah.
That was his first defense right there. They would come at him with anything, be like, "All right, that's it. I'm taking your house."
Mm-hmm. So his legal training had come later in life as he had returned from those years abroad. So let's get into his background. As a kid, Jameson Bachmann had been groomed for greatness. His parents raised him in Elkins Park on the northern part of Philadelphia, a really nice part of Philly. His father owned a construction company, and his mother stayed at home. He had a brother named Harry for 4 years, Jameson Sr. His brother was handsome and multi-talented, juggling the varsity soccer team and starring in plays. And Jameson was always kind of chasing after his older brother, who was beloved and plays a large role in who he ultimately became. He let this define him, the fact that his brother was more successful than him.
I guess so, but like when they interviewed some of Jameson's friends, they all looked up to him.
Yeah.
They all thought he was cool and talented and good looking and whatnot. And it's so crazy that Jameson was the only one that didn't see this. All he did was, it was just a fucking pity party his whole damn life.
Absolutely. Even as a kid, he was telling his best friend Bob, who we hear from in this case, that, you don't understand how bad my home life is and this and that. And it's like, but everyone else in your family says differently. Like, you were basically like spoiled to death,
Right? You're the only one that feels this way. Like, something's weird. Everybody you meet's an asshole.
You're the asshole.
We've said it before. Exactly.
So where Harry, his older brother, was outgoing and humble, Jameson was anything but humble. Quote, "He was the cockiest kid you ever met," said Bob Friedman, one of Jameson's closest childhood friends, who would play a role in this because they would have a long hiatus from seeing each other as Bob went on to become successful. And Jameson went on to, do whatever, move all over the world, and then come back at 40 and start a career in law.
Right.
Jameson harbored no doubts about his own abilities. He earned high marks, excelled at tennis, and spent his free time devouring books on the history of Western civilization. According to Alex Friedman, uh, Bob Friedman. Sorry, his best friend Bob.
Bob Friedman, yeah.
Jameson had an almost unquenchable competitive streak and very little interest in a fair fight. Weekend after weekend, he would force Bob Friedman to play a board game called Midway, which simulated the 1942 Pacific Theater battle in World War II. Basically, the game was slanted towards the Americans winning. And of course, Jameson had to be the Americans every time, forcing his friend to basically lose over and over again every weekend, just playing into his narcissism.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So fun.
Right.
This Bob guy, man, he needs some more self-esteem. Why are you hanging out with this asshole?
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, Bob, ditch this motherfucker.
Right.
But I think Bob was also friends with Jameson's older brother, Harry, as well.
Yeah.
I think he was probably more of the draw as to why he went over there.
But I think Bob was closer in age to Jameson, and they hung out a lot more. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Jameson's older brother would turn out to be the star, but Jameson was supposed to be the golden boy. Quote, his parents made him think he was the Christ child, that he could do no wrong, Bob mentioned. He remembered Jameson's mother, Joan, as a Carol Channing type, an ebullient woman who pinched her son's cheeks. They doted on him. It was always, you're doing great, champ. You're doing the best. And actually, Jameson had a grandfather who he adored. And his grandfather, I think at one point later in life, said that you were the horse I bet on and you failed me.
Yeah.
So he had a lot,
that's tough.
He had a lot of pressure growing up, I guess, to be perfect, essentially. And his older brother did basically pass the test and was perfect. And maybe the pressure just got to Jameson.
Yeah. Trying to follow in his footsteps.
Yeah.
But also be different. That rarely happens where two brothers follow the same path. Usually, if one brother succeeds in something, the next brother doesn't want anything to do with that shit.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'm doing my own thing. We already have somebody who does that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do this, but I think Jameson wanted to be his older brother and he was just never going to be him.
Yeah.
And instead of making his own way and finding his own things he's good at and whatnot, he just had pity party for the rest of his life and brought other people down.
Yeah. Yeah, Bob talked more about their family dynamic, and he said it got to the point where it was almost phony. It was over the top. It felt like they were both performing a role. And we mentioned the grandfather. So Jameson had a role model, his maternal grandfather, Abram J. Brem Levy, a prominent attorney in the city of Philadelphia. In the 1950s, he had co-founded a criminal defense firm with Samuel Dash, who would go on to serve as chief counsel to the Senate Watergate Commission in 1973. And as a trial lawyer, he became a fixture in the local papers. So he was like a local hero, badass attorney, always on the spotlight on him. And once again, just further reminds me of both Robert Durst and also John DuPont, coming from prominent families and having all this pressure and then not living up to it.
Yep.
And being a stain on the family name, apparently.
Right. And then throwing your weight around because you're mad about it for the rest of your life.
Cornered himself into becoming the black sheep of the family and then just let that define him. And then just basically held that chip on his shoulder in anger throughout his life.
Excellent point. I mean, somebody and he had every opportunity to start over. I mean, he even traveled abroad and shit, right? It's like you could have went and lived in the Netherlands and your brother's influence wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
Like your family's influence wouldn't have mattered. Your disappointed grandpa wouldn't have mattered.
You could have made a name for yourself out there from scratch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If that's what you wanted. But that's not what he wanted. He wanted to get revenge.
Yeah.
He wanted revenge.
Well, there's also something that some say may have defined Jameson Bachmann, a very dramatic experience that he went through in his early 20s when he was in college.
Yes. Okay.
So Jameson Bachmann enrolled at Tulane University in the fall of 1975, trying to get his life started, going through his education. But his time there was rocky and brief. He was witness to a horrific incident in which someone close to him, one of his good friends that he'd grown up with, was murdered right in front of him. In campus, in the Chai House, just off campus. Bachmann was not a member of that frat, but he told Bob Friedman, his best friend that he later connected with, he'd been hanging around the house with a friend from Elkins Park, a boy a year older named Ken Goodseat. And suddenly, a man appeared with a knife and slashed Goodseat's throat. The word Jameson used was beheaded. So he dramatized this thing a bit much, where it was more that this guy came in. He had this beef with Gutseats over this guy not being allowed in a certain cafeteria or something. They'd gone back and forth, and Gutseat had kept saying, "Hey, you're not allowed to be here." And this guy had had enough and came in and right in front of Jameson had stabbed this guy to death right in front of him.
Oh, and slit his throat pretty deep as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the beheaded thing came from, because I think he stretched it into like the guy's head was chopped off with a meat cleaver.
Yeah.
Like he went pretty drastic with it. But in the article, I mean, in the documentary, they actually showed an article from the newspaper, and it was a throat slashing.
Yeah,
but it was a throat slashing right in front of him.
The killer was a 25-year-old student librarian named Randall Vidrine, and him and the victim were said to have had been feuding since the previous fall after Vidrine called campus police on Gotzitz for eating a cheese sandwich among the stacks. So
whatever that means.
Yeah, I think there were sandwiches for the students or something, and this librarian guy who was not allowed to eat them ate one or something. I mean, it's like also like, bro, let it go.
You killed a guy over a sandwich?
Yeah. Well, they had an ongoing feud. They had an ongoing feud. Apparently, it was probably a few sandwiches.
Oh, okay. Okay, that was just a sandwich that broke the camel's back. I feel you.
So after this, the traumatic experience, Jameson Bachmann returned home in the summer of 1976. Family and friends found him shaken. He appeared oddly paranoid and ranted to Bob Friedman, his best friend, about the rising tide of anti-Semitism and threats to the state of Israel. And so apparently this attack was anti-Semitic when it really had something to do with a cheese sandwich.
Well, yeah, I know, right? Now I'm wondering, because Gutseat, I guess that does sound like a...
Yeah, it does sound like a Jewish name.
Huh? Gutseat.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe there was something deeper to that feud.
Maybe more than a sandwich. Maybe a deep-seated hatred for his religion.
Yeah.
So those close to him worried that Gotzeat's murder had served as a mental breaking point. Clearly distraught, Bachmann spent the summer getting high, and then he dropped off the map. Bob Friedman, his best friend, didn't see him again for 20 years. When Bachmann called him out of the blue and said he was living in D.C., they met at a bookstore in Crystal City, and it was like finding a long-lost brother, Bob said. We got very close very quickly. Jameson said he'd been living in Israel, where he claimed he had served in the Israeli Defense Forces. There, he had fallen in love with a Dutch woman who had followed him home. In the Netherlands, he had studied Japanese at Leiden University, a school that catered to international students. And this is interesting because the early 1980s marked the zenith of Dutch squatting, which was like a whole movement, apparently, in the 80s, really like the 60s through the 80s. In the Netherlands, it became a really big thing, squatting. So we'll go into a quick history about that. Squatting in the Netherlands is the occupation of unused or derelict buildings or land without the permission of the owner. The modern squatters movement began in the 1960s in the Netherlands, and by the 1980s, it had become a powerful anarchist social movement which regularly came into conflict with the state, particularly in Amsterdam, resulting in multiple riots. So this was a whole thing that had happened. Yeah. And so he maybe got his idea to come to the States and partake in this because of what he had learned from being over in the Netherlands during the 80s.
Yeah. I don't think he chose Philadelphia out of the blue, man. I think
that's where he grew up. But also it didn't hurt that they had very lax laws as far as squatting. So
yeah, exactly. It's the perfect storm for him.
Yeah. So shortly after the reunion with Bob Friedman, Jameson broke up with his girlfriend, and Friedman invited him to stay at his family's home in the suburbs. Big mistake. However, for his friend Bob, his friend Bob, who was very easygoing, and honestly, maybe the guy was like, just let too much shit slide. That's why he was friends with Jameson for so long. And when most people would have written him up
to Jameson.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Bob looked up to Jameson. You could even see that in the documentary.
Yeah.
Like, even after all this,
he was still making excuses for him.
He still said 80% good stuff about Jameson.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, and everything bad he said came with like a disclaimer.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, come on.
Right.
Like, you're still under this guy's spell.
Yeah.
Like, fuck this guy at this point.
Yeah. So as to Jameson living with Bob's family for a moment, he said, quote, "He was never a problem, perfectly well behaved, a great guest." He's the only guy that ever says this kind of shit. Like, he was under a spell, wasn't he?
He was.
He did, however, after a while start to make Bob Friedman's wife uncomfortable. Yeah, I imagine so.
Okay. Yeah. Women pick up on that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're picking up on that early on.
Yeah. So Bob had gone on to be successful, and it was, it was always supposed to be the opposite. Bob Friedman was supposed to have a very ordinary, non-compelling life, and yet Jameson, coming from this very affluent, powerful family, was supposed to be the successful one, and it turned out to be the opposite. Jameson was floundering, and Bob Friedman had launched an international barbecue restaurant franchise called Red Hot and Blue. And Jameson was at the time stocking books and writing copy part-time for a news program. And sometimes he mowed lawns to make ends meet. So, feeling bad for Jameson, Bob Friedman hired him as a manager at the local Red Hot and Blue with no prior experience. And of course, Jameson took the role and ran with it. He showed up on his first day of work with a suit and tie, telling employees he had been brought in as a consultant to work to turn the business around.
Oh, Lord.
His buddy does him a solid, and then he shows up first day doing that shit.
Dude, he's fucking Robert California from the damn Office. He's the fucking Lizard King, bro.
Right.
He just shows up and he's whatever role he needs to play to fuck people over.
Yep.
God, this guy.
Yep. So Bob finally put his foot down and fired Jameson, and not long after that, he asked him to move out. So even there was boundaries to even Bob's patience,
Apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently.
So Jameson's brother, his success offered perhaps a sharper contrast still. Harry had earned a degree in architecture from Cornell, married a psychologist from Paris, and raised 2 daughters in a colonial-style home on a quiet street in Elkins Park. So just the absolute perfect life of success.
I hate to make 2 office references in a row, but every time I hear Cornell, I think about Andy from The Office.
Course, right?
I went to Cornell, right? I went to Cornell,
right?
So
yeah, and he was in his choir group. That he never shut up about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an a cappella group or some shit.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, Jameson was the stain on the family. According to Bob Friedman, Jameson's family were ashamed that their youngest son hadn't similarly flourished like his older brother. And when Jameson talked about his family, it was often with resentment. Sometimes he noted what he perceived as his parents' better treatment of his brother, as if it explained his failure to launch properly into adulthood. So it was his family's fault that he never really got started.
Of course. Bro, it's always somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're a narcissistic sociopath, there's always somebody to blame.
Yeah.
You know that. You can't take responsibility. Yeah. Get out of here.
Even some of the roommates that he had tortured mentioned that Jameson expressed a deep-seated hatred for his mother. Quote, Jameson would say, "At least you had a mother. I didn't have a mother after the age of 8 because I had a mind of my own, and she didn't like that."
Oh.
So.
Oh. Yep. Mommy troubles. Man, he's just got all of them, don't he?
Yep.
He's got
everything's everyone else's fault with this guy.
That poor guy.
Right.
Just that poor soul, man. Just given a bad lot in life,
Imagine some of the people who truly gotten dealt bad cards in life, thrown into really impoverished areas with almost no avenue for success, and then they hear this guy's fucking sob story. Came from a rich family. There's too much pressure on me.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Get
over it, bro.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Jameson, when his father died from cancer, he didn't go to the funeral. Shortly after, he returned home where the fate of his father's estate was being determined. And expecting to receive a portion of the money, he was told his mother claimed it for herself, and he was furious. I mean, you haven't been around your family for the last 20, 30 years. And you didn't go to your father's funeral because you're angry at him, and yet you expect him to, have had you put in the will. You expect the mother to dole out some of that cash.
Right. Dude, you get what you give. You get what you give, and he gave nothing to his family in those later years. So you can't expect them to give back to you.
Yeah.
You can't.
One thing he did, one group of people he did impress, however, were his professors when he was going through college. He was the teacher's pet. And they found him to be remarkable. When he got his second law degree at the age of 45, his instructors at Georgetown and the University of Miami remembered him as remarkable, a student with extraordinary talents. He was this, quote, a star researcher whose contrarian style made classroom discussions lively. And one professor from Georgetown wrote, "In 20 years of university teaching, I have encountered very few people of his caliber."
Oh, God.
That's
just what he needed.
He sounds insufferable in class, right? If you're one of the other students. He's just constantly trying to dunk on you and shit, and try and make you look bad in front of the professor. I guarantee you.
And that was his whole motivation. Yeah. If there's somebody that he can ruin life for or make things miserable for, then that's his motivation. And I think in a classroom setting, his motivation was to make everyone else look bad. So he would do whatever he had to do. I can just imagine in that case, it was succeeding.
I could just imagine someone like answering a professor's question in front of class and then him just maniacally like, ha ha ha, oh, that's cute. And then going into his whole spiel.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That would be good, except for you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So here's what it really is.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
What a douche.
So Jameson may have started his legal education late, but he wasted no time putting it to use, tangling with at least 3 people in housing disputes before he'd even graduated. However, in 2003, another thing would go on to find him. He failed the bar exam on his first try and never bothered to take it again. So as brilliant as he was, well, I know the bar is supposed to be brutal, but if he's as genius as his professors say he was, you think he would have passed it on the first try easily.
Well, he's probably too smart for the bar.
That's what it is. So, yeah. I mean, the bar's really not designed for out-of-the-box thinkers. It's designed for people who follow the program to a T.
Right. So. These contrarian, out-of-the-box thinkers,
are always the
bar, it's just a waste. It's like an IQ test. Why even take it? It would be so off the charts. It would be embarrassing. So
it's not even worth my time.
Don't even worry about it. It's not even worth it, bro. I'm not even going to take it again.
Yeah. So having not passed the bar, his legal skills were then limited to a single client, himself. And so one woman suing for the repayment of more than $36,000 in debts became, in Bachmann's words, quote, bitter and a woman scorned. Alleging she'd given him herpes, Bachmann countersued her for torturous transmission of an incurable venereal disease.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I think that had to have been the woman that he lived with for 4 years, right? Because it would take that long to rack up that much cash in rent, right? And that was the woman that they dated for the first year or two that they were living together, and she greatly regretted this.
Yes, because they started as like a romantic relationship, and then he moved in,
and then she just could not get rid of him.
She couldn't get rid of him.
Yeah.
Couldn't get rid of him.
Yeah. And then another victim of his pointed out how Jameson had a tendency to clog his roommate's toilets with cat litter, and elicited the statement, quote, correct me if I'm wrong. This is what Jameson's response was to the whole kitty litter thing. He said, correct me if I'm wrong, as I only have 2 graduate degrees, but my understanding was the proper place for shit is in a toilet. So dumping his kitty litter box into the fucking toilet's the proper way to go, according to the law, apparently.
He's a fucking asshole, dude.
He's such a douche.
He's the worst.
So the judges oftentimes saw through his bullshit. They hear bullshit all day long. They know who the shit peddlers are, so to speak. And when he stepped before Judge Marvin Williams in Philadelphia to accuse Melissa Frost of destroying his property, Judge Williams told him, quote, I find you to be totally incredible. I don't believe a word you say, and frankly, you're frightening.
Right.
Love it.
Incredible, not amazing, right. Like uncredible.
Like I've never seen anything like this.
Right.
Yeah.
You couldn't be further from credible.
Yeah. So in most instances, due to these judges not buying it, the counterclaims and self-defenses that he brought forward were utter failures. But the result seems to have been almost beside the point. He would ultimately just move on to another one. He would play out his time there. Ultimately, they would, most of the time, the person that rented the room to him would win in court. But by then, they'd been drained mentally, physically, financially. He'd leached every bit out of them, and then now he moves on to a new host. He'd already sucked you dry of everything, and now he's going to move on to a new host.
Wow. Well put.
Yeah.
Well put. That's exactly. And that was his only intention. He wasn't really trying to win the apartment or any of this. He just trying to take shit for free over and over again and ruin people's lives.
Back in 2005, he was hired to teach at the Thornton Donovan School, a private school in New Rochelle. And the headmaster of this school offered him an apartment in a beautiful home on a peaceful street near campus. And according to one former roommate, Jameson began boasting about how much he'd impressed the school. So much, he said that they were already considering making him the school's next headmaster.
Oh my God.
Which was an absolute joke. Even the woman he was living with at the time, the one that he was leeching from for 4 years, said, like, I don't think that's going to happen. And at which point he turned on her, like you get that different change in his face. And they said his eyes would go black.
Yeah.
He was teaching, by the way, 8 and 9 year olds. It was basic primary school. And he was just bullying these kids, basically. His program was far too difficult for them because he thought he was, the most intelligent man around. And the
Right.
students were complaining to their parents and to, the principal that like this teacher scares me. Basically, there was one review of him that was left on a website called Rate My Teachers, and the quote was, "He scares me."
That's it.
So not
Yeah.
likely to
Yeah,
become
he took it.
headmaster.
No, no. He took it way too freaking
Yeah.
serious. Now, I know it was a private school,
Yeah.
and so, they probably had uniforms. The teachers probably were all of, very high degree and whatnot. And so he thought he was going to come in there, and he's like, finally, a school worthy of me.
Could you imagine if
know?
they'd actually given him the role of headmaster, the mistake that would have been? Like,
Oh my
you
God.
play
You'd
that
never
out a
get him
couple
out of
years
there.
down the road, and he is like
You'd have
principal.
You'd have to bulldoze the school.
Yeah, what was
to get him out of there?
The principal in Matilda Trunchbull, her name.
Oh,
just throwing kids out of windows and shit. Yo, fucking
that would be
stupid.
him
Just throwing kids
slinging them around by their pigtails.
Yeah, you got the hole. He'd have the hole to stick the kids in when they had a wrong answer. Like, oh my God.
Oh my God. It's just full of cat litter.
Right, exactly. Just dumps cat shit on their head whenever they have a wrong answer. Oh my God.
Yeah, he's awful, bro.
So when in the spring, when the school informed him that his contract would not be renewed, he withheld his rent in protest and refused to move out of the faculty apartment. This ain't like just some random apartment, that someone's renting a room to, bro. This is not gonna go well.
Right.
They will evict you quicker. They're a school. They got means. So after 2 months, the school would ultimately evict him. And now we'll go into Arlene. So this is the woman we keep alluding to, who he leached from for 4 years, who he dated for a little while. Arlene, her last name is brutal, so I'm not going to say it. She was a 43-year-old professional dog walker living in Queens, and she would make the mistake of allowing Jameson to stay with her in June of 2006 after his eviction from the school. So this was around the same time that he just gotten kicked out of that school, and he's given her the whole sob story about how they didn't understand him and yada yada. So
right.
At the time she took him in, Arlene and Jameson were casually dating, and she lived on a railroad apartment above a hobby shop in Richmond Hill. And he would often use this as a complaint as to why he wouldn't pay rent to, because it was such a noisy apartment, because the train would go by. He couldn't study because of it, yada yada.
It's like, bro, the train was here when you moved in.
Yeah.
Like that's you can't use that.
Yeah. She made Jameson guarantee he'd stay no longer than 2 months. And 4 months later, or 4 years later, sorry, 2 months became 6, 6 months became a year, 1 year became 4. 4 years without him paying any rent for 4 fucking years. He had only paid the first month, basically the first month of that 4 years.
Dude, imagine living with somebody in your home that you don't want around, but they're in your home, your safe place, for 4 years.
You pull up from work and you're just looking up at the light on. I think she mentioned that, and you're just like, God damn it. I hate my own home living situation.
He's in there with my stuff, with my animals, my room, my living room, you know what I'm saying? Eating my food, using my power.
And she's such a good person too. Like she mentioned how she considered several times just leaving, because she was having to work 2 jobs just to have this apartment that he was leeching on. Like, and he's living there all the time. She's working her double shift, coming home in the middle of the night, and this asshole's been there the whole day. And she's like, I considered leaving, but she really liked her landlord. He really liked her. He was an older guy that they had a great renter, tenant situation, and she knew that if she left, she'd be sticking this poor guy with this guy that was not going to pay any rent, and he wouldn't get anything for his apartment. And finally she snapped in October of 2010, more than 4 years after Jameson had moved in. She opened up one of the bills and just lost it. She turned to Bachmann and demanded he pay for the cable bill, and Jameson laughed at her and said he wouldn't. And she says she wasn't a violent person, but rage overcame her and she slapped him. In response, Jameson showed his true violent side, grabbing her by the throat, and she ultimately pulled herself free and ran to the street for help.
But the mistake here is that she hit him first.
She hit him first, and she also wasn't quick enough filing the restraining order. He beat her to the punch, and that ultimately costed her. So although they lived in the same house, they both were basically told by police, who were trying to figure this whole thing out. They were told by police on both ends to file protection orders against each other, which legally required them to remain 100 yards apart, which is hilarious because they're living in the same small apartment.
Right.
So
they can't even be 100 yards apart.
Yeah. So they both file for restraining orders, and they're both given them. However, he filed his first and got it stamped and, completed first. And that ultimately decided her fate. So she decided that the only way she could ultimately get him out was to file for eviction, something she should have done years ago. She should have done it 3 months into the situation when she realized where it was going. So on a November morning, she and her landlord went to the Queens City Council Civil Council Court to put in the paperwork. And when Jamison learned that she had filed for his eviction, he retaliated, filing a police report that claimed that she had come at him with a knife, persuading the police to arrest her. So she described this fucking creepy situation in which she finally asked her landlord for help, saying, I can't get this guy out. Can you help me? They go together. They file the eviction. And Jamison somehow found out. Like, he must have overheard their conversations about it or whatever. He knew that they went and filed this. So she said the next morning after she filed that, she was brushing her teeth and she looked over her shoulder, and there he was standing there with just this evil glare. And she leaves for work. And that was the day that he called the police and claimed that she had come at him with a knife. And
just out of the blue, he just comes up with this.
And so because
he's coming at me with a knife.
So he files this, report saying she came at him with a knife. And because he had filed the restraining order and gotten his in first, she's arrested. And at that point, she's forbidden to go near her apartment, which meant that Jamison was now in full possession of her apartment. And taking advantage, showing his true evil side, he began dropping off her cats at kill shelters. Her cats were very old, needed a lot of attention. They needed medicine. That was her primary concern when she was in jail, was like, I know he's not going to give my cats their medicine. And even worse than that, he took them to kill shelters, at which point one of her, I think she had two, one of her cats ultimately was beyond saving by the time she got to it, and she had to end up putting it down.
And I think he took one cat with him of hers.
Yeah, he ended up taking several of his tenants' animals. Some of the animals, I think all of the animals he had were probably stolen from former roommates.
Yeah. In hindsight, yeah, that dog, that 13-year-old dog, Zachary, I'm sure he was from somebody.
Yeah.
And then the tabby cat, they were all from somebody.
Yeah. In January of 2017, Jamison arrived at the home of Neville Henry, a 40-year-old Bermudian immigrant living in South Philly. And according to Henry, Jamison sent pictures of himself ahead of time. But when he showed up on Henry's doorstep, I didn't even recognize who he was, he says. I said, can I help you? Then he said he was in a relationship with someone for years and they took everything from him and he wanted a fresh start. Henry let him in. A week later, Jamison came after him with a broken leg of a coffee table. So it seems as though as we get to the end of this case, when he gets to Alex Miller, the person we started this case out with and we'll end with, by the time he got to 2017, he'd been doing this so long and he was just getting aggressive way quicker. He wasn't playing the long game anymore. As soon as you let him in, it seemed like within weeks he was showing violent tendencies. He was very bold and brash about the fact that this was now his home. And there wasn't that sweet kind of honeymoon stage when he first moved in that there was early on. It was just straight to this like psychopath.
Well, he probably just gave up on that, Lauren, because he realized that no one was just going to see it his way, the right way. I think these honeymoon stages were like, I'll give this person an opportunity to go along with everything I want.
Yeah.
And if they can't go along with everything I want, then I'll get,
which is going to be impossible.
I'll get physical. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's, any relationship is about cooperation, right? It's about accommodation. But I think later on, he was just like, fuck this. I know these people aren't as smart as me. They don't know as well as I do. They're not going to do things the right way. So fuck them. I'm going to show them who's boss right away. Yeah. And I think that's just his fucking narcissistic tendencies. And look how much he's gotten away with. Like, with every other type of criminal, they get more and more brazen, more and more bold.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing here.
Yeah. And this thing's all about to come to a head. This thing has a dramatic conclusion. So after, he moves in with Henry, this guy living in South Philly, Neville Henry, and goes after him with the leg of a coffee table within a week. Jamison would then abandon that house and later sue Henry, trying to recoup his rent. Then 2.5 months after that was when he changed his name to Jed Creek and moved into Alex Miller's apartment, the girl that we started this case with. And by the time he had arrived at Alex Miller's home in March of 2017, the only loved ones in his life left were his pets, Zachary and Abigail, the dog and cat, whom he called his, quote, children. And at this point, he'd gotten a name for himself. The Jamison Bachmann name was now well known. Yeah, and so popular. That's why he decides to change it to this Jed Creek character, because there's actually already articles and things written about him online. That's what Alex's mom ultimately finds when she types in and tries to dig him up. And so a few days after Alex and her mother, Susan, discovered his true identity online, Susan Miller, Alex's mother, let herself into the apartment unannounced. And Jameson came roaring out at her, quote, "What are you doing in my home? This is my daughter's home," said, "my daughter's home, Jameson." And at that point, this is the first time he's been called Jameson in this situation. He now knows that she knows his background. And she says his face went pale. It was the first time either of the Millers had acknowledged they knew his true name. Jameson had brushed off Alex's demands to leave with the mantra, quote, "I'll see you in court." And so Alex just devises a new plan. She realizes it's going to be hard to get him out legally. So she's going to have to flush him out by making him uncomfortable. There's certain like parasites, insects that if you was like something, if certain things they burrow into your skin, you dump some alcohol and they'll burrow their way out because they're just miserable.
Yeah,
it's like that.
That's what they tried to do.
Yeah, so they're trying to smoke them out, if you will, like bees. You can smoke them out.
Make it miserable for him to be there. That would be my next step as well. Yeah.
So by May 1st, she devised a plan. So this has been a few months now. She brought him in March. And she now realizes how hard it's going to be to get him out. She reads these articles about the former situations that he'd been in with roommates and things, and so she devises a plan on May 1st to have a large party in her apartment. She invites a dozen friends. Her mother as well is at the party, and they describe the party on Facebook as, quote, "a send-off for the serial squatter Jameson Bachmann." And this was meant to reclaim the space that was hers and let him know that he was not welcome. And she knew that he started his online tutoring sessions in the evening, like around 7 p.m. So that's when she started the party. And she did all the things that he hated. He hated loud music, especially rap. He hated drinking and smoking. So everybody in there was obviously partaking in drinks, and they were actually blowing cigarette smoke under the bedroom door into his room.
Nice.
She also went online and found photos of Melissa Frost, his former roommate that he had made life a living hell for. And she printed and taped up photos of Melissa Frost in the bathroom above candles so that Bachmann could see them. And, quote, she said, "I wanted him to know I knew his past and to have his face to the people he harmed, put a face to the people that he harmed."
Yeah.
So
damn,
he turns to his number one weapon, the kitty litter. At around 11 o'clock, Bachmann emerged with a box of cat litter and dumped it into the toilet.
That's such a weird, first freaking defense.
Right.
I don't know. I just don't get this guy, man, with the kitty litter.
Yeah.
Jesus. How much kitty litter does he buy? He must buy this shit in bulk. If he wasn't buying so much damn kitty litter, maybe you could just pay your rent.
For real.
And you could just live a happy life.
For real.
Fucking asshole.
Yeah. He then stormed out of the apartment with a backpack slung over his shoulder, with his dog slinking behind him. So the party raved on, and her friend took a drill to Jameson's bedroom door and removed the knob to where there was now just a hole looking into his bedroom and nothing securing it. Now, as the party wound down, friends begged her to stay with them for the night, knowing that, if he returned, things could get ugly. But Alex refused. She went to bed with her door open. And before dawn the next morning, she heard Bachmann rise unusually early and leave the house. And moments later, she heard the door open again. At this point, I believe she was in the bathroom. And he barreled down the hallway and slammed the bathroom door open, pushed her against the wall with his hand on her throat. But when she screamed, he retreated. He went back to his bedroom, at which point she was enraged. She's been absolutely assaulted in her own bathroom. And so she follows him to the bedroom, at which point he's sitting on his, comforters on the ground or whatever, chopping up cat food with his little knife. And standing in the doorway, she shouted, "Who the fuck do you think you are?" He then sat up on his heap of quilts, dicing the cat food with his serrated knife, and was coming back at her. Jumped up from being in the seated position. Now he's got this knife in his hand, and he leaned against the door to shut it, but her leg was between the door jamb and the wall, and he kept, according to her, slamming her leg in the doorway like 10 times, she said. And ultimately he said, "You've made a grave mistake," jabbing the knife into her leg, slicing her thigh.
Mm.
And of course, she then calls the police. And that morning, 2 police officers arrive. And according to the report, they found Jameson quite polite, cooperative, and apologetic. But when they saw the cuts on Alex's legs and also the marks on her
Yeah.
throat, they would arrest Jameson. This is the best thing that could have happened
Yep.
to her, really. She ultimately it was superficial wounds. Obviously,
Yeah.
she was assaulted, but now this is her
But she
chance.
had evidence.
Yeah, this is her chance to finally get him out for good. He finally fucked up
Yep.
and assaulted her.
Yep.
And so Jameson was charged with aggravated assault and other felonies and sent to jail. And Alex obtained a protection order while he was in jail. Inside his room, she was basically told, like, okay, you can now officially evict him. Like, he's assaulted you, and like there's no waiting anymore. You can just, he's not allowed back into the apartment anymore once she got that eviction notice. And because
Right.
coupled with the restraining order, the judge granted an immediate eviction. So she's now going into his room and clearing up, gathering all of his shit to bring it to him. And her mother decide it's probably a good idea for them to give him back his belongings in front of the jail. That way, you know, there's less likely for him to try and do anything crazy. So inside his room, they found hundreds of pages of court filings against previous roommates. And in the back of his closet, she came across a blue box, which contained a cleaning kit for a 380 caliber pistol and a box of bullets. But the gun was nowhere to be found. They ultimately turned the apartment upside down looking for the gun. They cleaned out cabinets, peered into the air conditioning vents, rented a metal detector, and even scoured the lawn, but the gun was nowhere to be found. So, so Jameson ultimately gets bailed out almost immediately by his older brother. His older brother, Harry, decides to bail him out, and he starts living with Harry and his wife, Carolyn. They took him into their home in Elkins Park, only to learn what living with him was like. You know, that didn't last long. And Harry was not too keen on that experience. And so when he bailed him out the second time, the Millers arranged to meet him outside of the local jail to bring him his belongings.
Right.
They had everything except one major thing: the dog, his collie. They had basically donated it, or basically let one of Alex's friends adopt this dog.
Yeah. One of Alex's friends
took the dog in, feeling bad for it. And so that morning, the morning of the exchange in front of the police station, Jameson stood outside of the station filming the Millers with his phone and narrating their arrival. And as police observers hovered nearby, they handed him the Rubbermaid bins and Abigail the cat. But Jameson was enraged when they declined to give back Zachary, the dog. They had sent him to live with a woman in the suburbs, and the judge had permitted her to keep him. So this was allowed by the judge, the dog situation. And so as the Millers left the station, Jameson pulled up alongside them in a rented car and rolled down his window and said, "You're dead, bitch," before speeding off. She then, at the behest of her mother, stormed back into the police station and told them what he had just said, violating his protection order. And a few weeks later, he was rearrested and put in prison again, at which point he grew frantic about his cat, which had been left behind in the Airbnb that he was renting after his arrest. So he then relies on his older brother, Harry, whom he resents and has held up all this hatred for years because the family chooses him over Jameson. But it was his only option. I mean, he burned every other bridge in his life. And so concerned about getting bailed out early so he could get his cat back, he calls Harry, but it had been fostered out to someone by an animal shelter while he was in jail because Harry didn't get to bailing him out quickly enough. And of course, he held this against Harry. So on October 28th, Harry bailed him out a second time, and Jameson asked to stay at Harry's house in Elkins Park, but Harry refused. Harry's wife, Carolyn, was out of town to see their newborn grandchild, with plans to have Harry meet her the following week. And she feared that, something bad might happen if Jameson made an appearance at the house. And she asked Harry to stay elsewhere. Like, don't go back to the home. We're worried that Jameson's going to go there and be waiting for you. And shortly before 7:00 on the evening of November 3rd, Harry did, in fact, against his wife's wishes, stop at the home on his way out of town. So he was going to head, to out of state to be with his wife and see his grandchild, but he wanted to make a quick stop at the house, probably to grab something. And as he pulled up in Caroline's red Ford Escape, he saw an unwelcome sight confront him. He texted his wife, quote, "Guess who just showed up as I drove in?" He texted his wife, and then he responded immediately, "No, don't guess. It was Jameson." Harry had been scheduled to arrive in upstate New York later that night, but he never made it. And so, of course, his wife becomes concerned, especially after that text, and she calls the police to do a welfare check on their home. And when the police went to canvass the home, at first they saw the red Escape was gone and assumed that he had left. But when they returned later that day, they noticed a trail of blood leading from the sidewalk to the front door. And when they entered the home, they found a bloody disaster. They followed the bloody drag marks, quote unquote, to the basement door, which had been blocked by a box. And when they opened the door, they saw on the stairway the body of Harry Bachmann, which had been basically bludgeoned to death with a blunt object. There was no knife or gun used. It was blunt force trauma.
Did they find the weapon?
No,
because I couldn't. Yeah, okay. I couldn't find.
I don't know if he just beat him to death with his fists or if there was, some sort of object used.
Yeah, I doubt that.
I mean, Jameson was 60 now, and his brother we mentioned earlier was 4 years older. So it was, they're not young guys anymore. I mean, who knows what kind of physical shape his older brother was in.
Right.
But soon police discovered the red Ford Escape in the parking lot of a hotel up the road. And what led them actually there was something so stupid. Jameson actually took his brother's credit card, went up the road and used it at a motel. And he left his brother's phone on in the home where he'd murdered him. And the police are there investigating the scene, and they get a notification pop up on Harry's phone that says that, oh, you've been charged for your stay at the whatever hotel. The credit card was linked to his phone. And this is modern day issues when you kill people, like the kind of shit that can happen.
Yep.
And so they're like, oh, I wonder if he's staying at that hotel, or Harry, who's now dead's credit card was just used. And sure enough,
it ain't Harry.
Yeah. So they go to the hotel, they talk to the front desk, and they say, the guy that matches this guy matches your guys' description, and he's staying in room 102. And so they get a SWAT team at around 10:30 p.m. to break down the door. And what happens next is unclear. The police originally reported that Bachmann submitted without incident, but an affidavit filed a few weeks later claimed that he rushed at the SWAT team, swinging a lime green campfire axe at them in a figure X pattern. And actually, the police interviewed in that 2-part Netflix show said that one of the police had been struck in the face with it, right?
Yes, and one was struck in the arm.
Yeah, and you see the mug shot.
They should have shot and killed this motherfucker.
I mean, that's what I'm like, man, that's amazing that he didn't get killed, right? Like,
bro, made Swiss cheese out of this bitch, man. He come swinging an axe.
It was probably because it was a SWAT team, and like they had this. I'm imagining they had a full gear, like probably the shields and the helmets and everything.
I see what you're saying.
And if it wasn't a gun he was coming at him with, yeah. But still, so he took a beating because the mug shot following his arrest for this showed him quite beaten up, bloodied and black-eyed and everything else. So he took a beating for that.
Right.
And his preliminary hearing was set for the morning of December 11th, but he'd never make it. A few days after his arrest, he hung himself in his cell in Montgomery County Prison. And
that piece of shit.
The deaths of the Bachmann brothers left Alex Miller, the woman who he had his latest renter feud with, wrecked with guilt. She said, quote, "I felt responsible for all of it, but along with the grief came relief. The trial that she had upcoming was canceled, and she would no longer have to worry about facing him in court or in the streets because he had just threatened her life in front of a jail, after she had given his dog away."
Yeah.
But yeah, you imagine I could see how she would feel bad because she was kind of at the center point of this whole thing. Her getting him arrested, which of course, it was justified, him getting arrested for what he had done to her, but led to his brother bailing him out, which led to his brother needing to bail him out again. And then that whole him blaming his brother for not getting him bailed out quick enough and leading to his animal being given away and yada, yada. Ultimately, I mean, remember, wasn't John DuPont going to kill his brother at some point? Or no, that was no, that was Robert Durst. Remember, he had gone to his brother's home to kill him. This is so much reminded me of that, right? He blamed the success of his brothers so much for the way his life had gone, and the only way to make it right was to end them. And thankfully, Durst was unsuccessful. Yeah, thankfully Durst was unsuccessful in that attempt. But yeah, so many similarities.
But seriously, two brats throwing a temper tantrum for their whole life.
Mm-hmm. Crazy case, action packed. This guy, be careful who you let into your home. Be careful who you let put your address on their mail.
Yeah, that's right. So. That's right, guys. If they know your address and they're getting mail sent there, it's like, what's to stop somebody from just putting your address. So like for instance, what if I wanted to put your address on a subscription for a magazine, right? And I started getting magazines sent to your house with my name on them. And then I could just like live in there.
Pretty sure we've already had that happen multiple times throughout the course of this podcast. We've had shit sent to each other with the different names and addresses on it and shit.
Right. I'm saying it's not hard to do, right?
Right.
But that evidence could, so technically he could, once he starts conversations with these people and finds the address, he could already be having this mail in the works there. So, within being there for a couple of days while he's still being cordial in the honeymoon stage, he's got the mail coming already, and then you're fucked. Whether, like we said, whether he's filled out that lease paper or not, which he never did fill out lease paper, at least not for Alex.
No.
He never did fill out any of that information because obviously it would have been all false.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then you're facing real legal trouble, right? He knows the law.
Yep.
He knows what's
and
up.
he didn't need it. Yeah, he didn't need it. Once she, like we mentioned, cashed that check with his name on her address, it was over, baby.
He didn't need it. But you know what you do need?
You know, one thing that is okay to put your address on and have things sent to is Oh My Gaia.
It's Oh My Gaia. Yeah. You actually want Oh My Gaia to have your address.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How else are you going to get that good stuff?
That's right. How else are you going to get access to an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company that specializes in paraben and aluminum-free products? Tell me that, huh? Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness. And at Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. Guys, there's tons of scents to choose from, including our very own scent, True Crime Pine, made just for the true crime guys, if you guys don't know where to start. But there's also vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, fireside, pear, sweet pea, sailor, barbershop, and more, guys, all the time. And there's also beard oils and essential oils in these scents as well. And because you're True Crime Guys listeners, you can use the code CREEPER for 15% off your order. That's CREEPER for 15% off your order. And you can order at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram or ohmygaia.com. That's OHMYGAIA.com. Guys, you won't regret it. Again, use code word CREEPER for 15% off.
Do it. And also go check out Tonic CBD. Their website is tonicvibes.com. Their farm to bottle CBD plus botanical blends are uniquely formulated to provide targeted support where you need it most. Each and every high quality ingredient is thoughtfully selected for its ability to support and enhance the benefits of CBD, resulting in a more effective, well-rounded, and consistent wellness solution for your body. They have a bunch of different blends depending on your needs. Chill Tonic's been one of my favorite for anxiety. It has ashwagandha, lemon balm, and passion flower to deliver a super calming effect. But it's also really cool how they use black seed oil in a lot of their blends. Black seed oil, if you don't know, is an antioxidant powerhouse, and it's great for your immune system and just really scratches the surface of what this superfood can do. So it's really cool to see how they combine it with CBD like this. I love how easy also it is to verify the quality of Tonic's products. They have a microchip thing in the product packaging, and you just tap your phone on the top of their packaging, and it links your phone to third-party lab reports, product information, details about their farm, and even helpful blog posts to provide you with some CBD education. So with values rooted in quality, integrity, and sustainability, Tonic is committed to creating plant-based wellness products that are good for the people and good for the planet. Visit tonicvibes.com to learn more and use code word CREEPER for 20% off your order. tonicvibes.com, code CREEPER.
Right. And guys, there's links to both of these sponsors right below the description of this episode.
Right. Can't live without them. We're basically working for product.
That's right. Good stuff. Products we believe in, though.
That's right. Absolutely.
Products we believe in, we use. My son, he just turned 13. He's starting to stink now. Got him a fresh jar of Oh My Gaia. He's good to go.
Yeah.
Now he's hooked.
Shout out to my boy Joe, who finally went over to Oh My Gaia, and he's constantly telling everyone to smell his pits. You know what that is? That's True Crime Pine. He's always doing that shit. He's like, that's Lauren. He's like, use code CREEPER. He's like straight up just advertising us. I'm like, all right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. I love that True Crime Pine. Like we say, that's a great unisex scent, man. It's a great one to start with.
You know what else is unisex? Our Patreon page.
Yeah, of course. It's for everybody.
Yep. We don't care what kind of parts you got down there. Come listen.
Nope.
That should really be a t-shirt.
Yeah. We don't care about your parts. We just care about your ears.
We don't care what parts you got. Listen.
Right on, guys. Patreon.com. At the end of every episode, we update you guys with a TCG outro about when all of our shows come out. But patreon.com/True Crime Guys, and you can get access to everything that we create here on True Crime Guys Network. For just $2 a month, you get access to all of the vault episodes of True Crime Guys. You may be looking through the episodes and you notice, hey, where's the first 50 episodes? Well, they're in the vault. And they are available on Patreon for just $2 a month. You can get access to those first 50 episodes of True Crime Guys, as well as every Patreon exclusive. Every week that we're off, every single month, we do a Patreon exclusive that's just on Patreon, and you'll get access to all 60-something of those episodes, as well as the first 50 True Crime Guys vault episodes. Now, for the $5 tier, you get access to everything. We open it all up. For just $3 more a month, you get access to Just the Banter with me and Lauren every Friday, which we're about to record after the show, with video as well. You get access to Lauren's 5-Minute Murder every Saturday as well with video. Strange Shorts with myself and Andy on the Sandu platform every single Monday, as well as Sandu Stories, which is our professional audio quality show where we do scripted audio, voice actors, sound effects, scenes, and all that jazz. And guys, again, that's patreon.com/True Crime Guys. And for just $5 a month, and you can get yearly subscriptions now. So you can pay up front, $54 a year, save a little bit. I think you save 10%. So it's a great deal, guys. It's cheaper than a gallon of gas, or it might not be now. I think gas is dropping a little bit now, but
yeah, it's still floating around $5 here in Vegas.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, we're down below $4 here.
Oh my gosh, that'd be nice.
Yeah, we're chilling.
All right,
but it's still
it ain't gonna matter soon. I'm taking delivery on my Tesla coming up pretty soon in about a month.
There you go.
I'm gonna fucking fly by those stupid gas stations.
Suck it.
Spend too much of my life in those things.
All right, seriously.
All right,
man.
Thanks everybody for listening and sharing the show and everything that you do. We'll see you over on Patreon as well for Just the Banter, which Michael said we're just about to record right now. So yeah, if you haven't joined over there, you know where to find us. And have a great week.
Right, guys.
I'll see you next week. Keep creeping.
Keep creeping, guys.
From the minds of True Crime Guys, come
TCG Weekly. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to check out all the other programs on the TCG network. Every Wednesday, a new episode of True Crime Guys proper, Strange and Unexplained on Mondays, and Full House Fantasy Football on Fridays to start your weekend. And if those aren't enough, head on over to our Patreon account, where you can have access to hundreds of hours of content, including older episodes and other Patreon exclusives like Strange Shorts, Sandu Stories, Higher Thoughts, and the 5-Minute Murder Show. But until next time, guys, keep creeping. Hey, how do you shut this thing off? Over?
You hush your mouth, boy.